Hello, everybody. Welcome to Shadow at Night for Monday, January the 13th, 2025. And on the show tonight, we are 1 week away from the inauguration of President Donald Trump and 25% tariffs across the board for Canadians selling to Americans. That's what Trump says. Danielle Smith was down there over the weekend with Mr. Wonderful Kevin O'Leary to meet with President Trump, and she said a few things today to Sun Media, to Post Media, and we'll have that for you. And Jagmeet Singh. Jagmeet. Hey, Don, you want to step in the ring, Don? Donald Trump, you're an existential threat. I mean, seriously, he is about as insignificant next to Elizabeth May as you can be in Canadian federal politics. As a matter of fact, it's my opinion that after this election, and by the way, I'm hearing from my inside people in Ottawa, and you may have heard this on that show on YouTube there with the Northern Exposure, Northern Perspective. You may have heard this with them, that the election is supposed to be slated for May the 5th. That's a Monday. So that's what I'm hearing as well from my inside people in Ottawa. So I can't confirm. That's just what I'm hearing. Monday, May the 5th. Canadians will be going to the polls. We don't know who the leader of the Liberal Party is going to be. Okay, so here's a couple of predictions for you. I was pretty bang on with the election a couple of months ago. Mark Carney is going to win the leadership of the Liberal Party of Canada because Chrystia Freeland is not going to run. This is only my hypothesis. Those two are very close friends, you know. They're both allies on the World Economic Forum. Carney is top level economic forum, right? He's right up there. He was a world banker, for goodness sakes, right? So he's right up there with Schwab and those guys. And Chrystia Freeland, I believe, is a step lower. She sits on the board. She was Justin Trudeau's handler. I believe she's a localized member of the World Economic Forum responsible for Canada. So if Carney's running, Freeland doesn't need to, aside from the fact that I believe he is godfather to one of her kids, or maybe all of them. I don't know. But they're too close. To get into a bloodbath in a leadership race means you have to start slinging some mud. And I don't think that Chrystia Freeland or Mark Carney want to sling mud at each other. They don't want any rifts in the Liberal Party of Canada or the World Economic Forum, for that matter. So Mark Carney is going to make an announcement in Edmonton on Thursday. That's one prediction. The other one I've got is Jagmeet Singh after this election, possibly on May the 5th or sooner, will step down. Either that or he's going to be fired as the leader of the NDP. I think he's probably going to get the same amount of seats, maybe a couple less, maybe a couple more in this election as he's had, which is 24 or 25. He'll be replaced, and I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. He'll be replaced by Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew, who is an Aboriginal Canadian, and he'll immediately garner more support than Jagmeet Singh ever did in his 6-year run or 7-year run as the leader of the NDP. Mark my words. And that's going to be probably sometime in June, July, maybe August. Wab Kinew will be the new leader of the federal NDP. Remember, all of those provincial and the federal party of the NDP, they're all connected, right? It's not like the Conservatives and the Liberals. They're not joined with their provincial parties, but the NDP are. And Wab Kinew is the NDP premier of Manitoba right now, and I believe he's the next leader of the federal NDP. You can take that one to the bank, man. I'll put money on it. I'll put $5 on it. What do you think? Now, I don't want to start a pool here because that would be illegal without a lottery license number. So I can't do that, man. Shadow at Night live stream, as always, is brought to you by CanadaNanoSilver.com.
Crest toothpaste to SilverSuticals toothpaste. First, we're starting out with Crest. It's a classic. It's an original. It's what I've used most of my life. But that being said, it does have its problems. First off, the consistency is so weird and thick, and I get it's a paste, but it really doesn't spread that well. And I must also say that I'm not in love with the taste. I get toothpaste isn't supposed to taste good, but why shouldn't it? But that being said, it does get the job done. Next, we have SilverSuticals. They have 3 flavors, but today we're going with Bubbleberry. And already it smells so good. So I'm excited to see what this tastes like. The consistency is also a lot smoother, and I must say it spreads way nicer in your mouth.
This literally tastes like fruit bubblegum.
Yeah, this toothpaste was pretty good. I actually went in for seconds, and it's infused with nano silver, so it helps remineralize your teeth and keep them fresh throughout the day.
100% go with SilverSuticals.
And here's the results. What's your favorite toothpaste?
100%, man. SilverSuticals. I just brushed my teeth with the cinnamon just now, 10 minutes ago. CanadaNanoSilver.com. Call today, 204-808-9292. I think Kevin and Anna are still in Mexico, but they'd be happy to hear from you if you called them. He's probably going, no, not now. The long distance alone is going to kill me. Unless you got a plan. You must have gotten a plan, Kev. You must have gotten a plan. I'm not sure if you're down there for a couple of weeks or a month or whatever it is, but if it's that long, I'm hoping that you got a plan. If you're looking for retail locations, here's the website. There you go. Retail locations tab is right here. All across the country, over 35 of them. And if you want to contact Kevin and Anna, you can do that on the contact tab at CanadaNanoSilver.com. All right, let's say some quick hellos here. Sherry is watching on X from Winnipeg. Michael's in Brampton. Hello. Watching on Facebook. Hello from Grand Prairie, says Terry. Laura Angel is watching in Crossfield, Alberta. Debbie is watching in Kipling, Saskatchewan. Linda, hello in Durham, Ontario. Ellen is watching tonight, just popping in to say hello, but I'm going to skip tonight. Need a break. I don't blame you, Ellen. I don't know where you're watching from, but hello. If you're already gone, I guess I missed you. Glow is watching from Winterpeg, where it's, I think, minus 27 right now with the wind. Makes it feel like minus 32. Hello, Cheryl in Alberta. Daniel is watching in St. Malo. Chris is watching from northern New York State. Old McDonald. Chris is Old McDonald. So hello, everybody watching on X, YouTube, and, of course, Facebook. And over on Rumble, we got Braveheart, we got Vilma, we got Crivier, Notable, Starliner, 1961, For Insight, God is for Pearl. Did I say chicken hair already? If I didn't, chicken hair. Hello. Yo, you go girl, 123. Bright Can News is watching in Guelph, and Seacross is watching in Bridgewater, the Bridgewater area of Nova Scotia. So no matter where you guys are watching from tonight, get it out there, like and share. We want to hit as many people as we possibly can. Let's start with this story that has been developing, I guess, over the past week or so. And it started off with this Twitter account called gov.x. Hang on just a minute. Let me make sure. Gov.x is corrupt. A lot of followers on this account, and I'm not sure if I'm not sure who runs it, because it's not a proper name, first of all, on the account, and there's no photo. So, and the person never steps out to show us who he or she is, for that matter, which is probably the first thing you should do if you're trying to organize a nationwide gathering in the nation's capital. Freedom Convoy leaders trying to stop a planned election convoy to Ottawa again. You may have heard about this. It's been making the rounds. I think our friend Greg Wycliffe did a post about it on YouTube and Facebook. But what's happening is some of the original leaders, and this is some of the seedy underbelly stuff that happens within the freedom movement from people who say they are interested in freedom for Canada and they're behind the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and they want everything to work out well. But then again, they go ahead and subvert everything that happens that is good. I'm not naming names here, but there is one individual in particular in Ottawa who seems to be on our side, but then isn't. And I just don't understand why somebody would behave in that manner. There is nothing to gain. And there is only scorn. There is only scorn. That, why would you make yourself? I don't understand that. But anyway, leaders of the original Freedom Convoy scrambling to pour cold water on plans for a so-called election convoy, the proposed election convoy, which is being planned to coincide with the Freedom Convoy's 3-year anniversary, which is being planned. Sorry, I said that already, is pitching itself as a protest against Justin Trudeau's prorogation of Parliament to force a snap election. Organized largely in, here we go again with the far right Facebook groups. This is from a site called convoywatch.ca. I'm not sure who's responsible for this site. Far right. The 2025 election convoy is being spearheaded by figures previously associated with the anti-LGBTQ plus million-person March for Children, Save the Children convoys, a conspiratorial group that aspired to arrest this sounds like press progress or something. It's crazy. But Chris Barber has said, no, I'm not interested. You see, what's going on here is whoever is trying to subvert this is tagging the original Convoy people in the posts, trying to tie them together. And those trials aren't even through yet. Chris, Tamara, and I think Pat gets sentenced Thursday. And it's not helping his case either, Pat King. So they are, the original Convoy folks are saying, no, we don't want this to happen. What good is going to come of this? I heard David Creighton talking the other day about, oh, this is just what Trudeau wants. He can declare the Emergencies Act again because people are going to get out of control. Ultimately, I don't see anything to gain here if people are going to get out of hand. And sadly, and I had been calling for a gathering, a large gathering. I wasn't suggesting that we should bring trucks and do the honk thing again because that caused so many issues. And I'm not talking about the people who were complaining in downtown Ottawa. I'm talking about the people who were doing the honking. You get out of hand. Your emotions overwhelm you. They take over. And in that moment, you just, and there's people sleeping. It's 10 o'clock at night and there's people sleeping like 100 feet away from you. And those truck horns are loud. I mean, I experienced that at the Winnipeg version of the Convoy, which was significantly smaller. And it was loud when they all blasted their horns together. And there was probably 100 trucks or more on weekends at the Winnipeg protest as well. You could not hear yourself think. And I can't even imagine what that sound times 10 would have been like. And if that is being suggested again, that's not a good idea. You know that Trudeau, even though he will not jump on those Palestine protesters, because it's a two-tiered policing system in this country, at least it is right now, he would jump on anybody associated with a freedom or election convoy if it were to go to Ottawa. And here is the original post from govd.x is corrupt on X. Okay, Canada, something is happening. Let me throw this up on the screen here for you guys. I'm hearing rumors from various sources about a convoy to Ottawa. This is the guy who is making these rumors. He says, I'm hearing rumors, but this is the guy, I believe, who is actually trying to get this thing rolling. So he says, I'm hearing rumors from various sources about a convoy to Ottawa to protest Trudeau's prorogation. I'm hearing January 22nd is the date, the 3-year anniversary of the Freedom Convoy. If true, this could be massive. And then he shows a picture of 3 years ago, all the trucks rolling down the highway. I'm not exactly sure where that's from. So then he goes ahead and he posts, because people were pushing back on this idea. And again, I don't think it's a bad idea, but if you're bringing trucks and you're going to do the honk thing, because there's people still doing that. There's people still making posts like that all over social media. And that the same sort of fever pitch would overwhelm that crowd. Nobody would do anything horrendous. Don't get me wrong. But any little thing, and what the media would do, and what the Liberal government would do. And Trudeau himself might find some kind of second, third, or fourth life if he were to try and invoke the Emergencies Act again, don't you think? So he may be waiting for something like that. And that's why, aside from legal difficulties, all of the main names from the original convoy are really backing hard away from this. So there was a lot of discussion about this, some good, some bad, a lot of arguing, a lot of debate about this on social media for the past few days. And finally, this account on X said, I would just like to say, because he had a donation page up on Give, Send, Go as well. I would just like to say thank you to all the people who supported the idea of exercising their right to protest prorogation. But like everything these days, it became polarized way too quickly. CPC supporters were accusing me of working for the PPC. PPC supporters were accusing me of working for the CPC. So he is admitting now that he's the one who was behind this. When all I wanted was for Canadians to get off their asses and do something. So the Give, Send, Go has been shut down and all money raised has been refunded. And so then there's the comments Some people are upset by this announcement. Some people are happy about this announcement. So, it's a real tough call. And nobody, after seeing what Tamara, Chris, and Pat King and everybody else has been through over these past 3 years, nobody would want to step up and take charge of that. And you do have to have leadership at an event this size, or it gets out of control. So it's going well. Thank you, Michelle. That was somebody messaging me on Telegram, and it blings on my computer. I'm sorry. I'm not sure if you guys heard that or not, but I sure did. It's going well. Thank you, Michelle, for asking that. So anyway, I don't know how you guys feel about it. This is the first time I've talked about it. And, while I like the idea of 100,000 people standing, and you've heard me say this, standing on the front lawn of Parliament Hill, holding signs peacefully, quietly, no honking, no yelling, because there's also it was like a $300 million lawsuit as well against the Freedom Convoy organizers from that Paul Champ idiot in Ottawa, that lawyer, and that Zexi Lee and all of her crew of people who say they were put out for 3 weeks of their lives. And it's a $300 million. Where'd they come up with that number? I was asking last week, Helen Gruss is suing the CBC for $875,000. And I said, that's not enough. Where does Paul Champ come up with $300 million on behalf of like 10 or 11 litigants? I don't get it. But anyway, this Freedom Convoy 2.0, this election convoy is not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So as I mentioned off the top of the show here, Mark Carney is expected to launch his Liberal leadership bid in Edmonton on Thursday, according to sources. This comes from The Hill, hilltimes.com. Carney's father, Bob, ran unsuccessfully for the Liberals in Edmonton South in the 1980 federal election. Like that's some kind of a subheading to this title, whatever it is. Mark Carney has downplayed, you may have heard about this, you may have seen the photos. If you haven't, I'm going to show you right now. Downplays photos with sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell. There he is. There's Mark Carney right there. There's Mark, and there's Ghislaine Maxwell. We all know who she is and what she did. Hey, Mark, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're hanging out with a sex trafficker. I didn't know you was a sex trafficker at the time. Presumptive liberal, and Carney's going to win. He's going to win. If I'm right, Freeland doesn't run and Carney wins. I mean, these other two guys, come on. Declared guys, and they're saying Francois-Philippe Champagne might run, but whatever. Carney is the chosen one by the WEF and by the Liberal insiders. He's already won. Presumptive Liberal leadership candidate. You got to say presumptive because he still hasn't won, but he's going to win. Mark Carney's camp says the former central banker is not friends with convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell, despite chummy photos of the two that have recirculated in recent days. Carney's campaign has denied any involvement with Maxwell outside of being photographed with her. Zing! The campaign has maintained she was simply a friend of Carney's sister-in-law, and that the two were not acquainted beyond attending the same event together. Defenders of Carney say these photos are simply being used by conservatives as a political game. However, the original account that posted them was anonymous and bears a small following. This is another example of how Pierre Poilievre and Jenny Byrne, that's his top advisor, have always played politics. And it shows again how terrified they are to fight Mark Carney, a source to Carney told the Toronto Sun on Friday. Yeah, I'm sure they are so scared. As a child, the woman you reference went to the same high school as Mr. Carney's wife's sister. Well, they've bumped into each other in public settings, including the 11-year-old photos you've sent. They are not friends. Maxwell is currently serving a 20-year jail sentence. She's still alive. She's got that going for her. For her role in recruiting, grooming minor girls in a sex trafficking ring run by her longtime partner, Jeffrey Epstein. The photos began going viral on social media last week, which show Carney, his wife Diana Fox Carney, with Maxwell at a social event in England called the Wilderness Festival in 2013. Now, we've been hearing that Mark Carney said, I ran into her a few times. I bumped into her a few times. We heard that's something he said when rebutting Are You Friends? In my world, you don't bump into people over and over and over again unless you run in the same circles as they do. Otherwise, your chance of bumping into them over and over and over again decreases greatly. Wouldn't you say? I would. So, of course, the Liberal Party's all together trying to say, hey, conservatives, you're playing dirty pool here. And by the way, this is Talib Noor Mohammed, who's an MP from Vancouver, not for too much longer. But anyway, he says, now do your leader in Diagolon or your colleagues in actual Nazis. Or sit this one out, Dan Albas, MP, conservative MP, who posted the picture. I'm trying to figure out what actual Nazis Talib is talking about. Talib, it was your party that invited an actual Nazi from Ukraine into parliament and gave him a standing ovation. What Nazis have the conservatives hung out with? Oh, you're going to try and say that what's her name from Germany is a Nazi? She's not a Nazi. I forget her name now. What's her name? You guys remind me in the comments. It's not even on the tip of my tongue. She's with the ADF party or the AFD or whatever it is. Anyway, she's not a Nazi. She's not even far right. She's just common sense. And then, of course, the Diagolon crew. When Polyev, I guess it was this past summer, stepped into one of their campers somewhere in Nova Scotia. Like, seriously, Talib? Seriously? Yeah, yes, they're serious. These liberals have no idea. They have no connection with reality. This is disturbing video. It's a clip I found of Mark Carney from about 6 or 7 years ago. Now, if you want to talk about globalist, listen to what he says at the very end of this clip.
An existential threat. We all recognize that. There's increasing urgency around that. But the converse of that, the flip side of that is if you're taking steps, making investments, coming up with new technologies, changing the way you do business, all in service of reducing and eliminating that threat, you're creating value. And what we have seen increasingly, spurred initially by the Sustainable Development Goals, accelerated with Paris, and then through social movements and others and governments acting, is society is putting tremendous value on achieving net zero. So the companies and those who invest in them and lend to them, who are part of the solution, will be rewarded. But those who are lagging behind and are still part of the problem will be punished.
Those who are lagging behind and still part of the problem will be punished. Punished. How, Mark? Financially? Or have you got some other scheme up your sleeve? Like, seriously? Christine Anderson, by the way, thanks you guys for writing that down. How does her name escape me? My goodness, she's a huge celebrity in Canada. Bigger in Canada than she is in Germany. Danielle Smith over this past weekend went down to Mar-a-Lago and visited with Donald Trump and Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, and they were talking about trade. They were talking about tariffs, and she spoke with Post Media today. Looks like she's sitting on the the floor of her hotel room here.
That if there is some sort of export ban on Alberta oil, that would precipitate a national unity crisis. From your perspective as Premier of Alberta, what does that look like, other than, I don't know, people being mad in the streets? Or, I mean, is it a separation referendum? Like, what are we talking about when you say national unity crisis?
Well, I can't predict what Albertans would do, but as you know, the part of my strategy over the last 2 years has been to say that we can have a constructive relationship with Canada. And I would hope that would continue to be the case. Here's the thing I find irritating about Eastern politicians.
Before we get into that, like, she is so casual. I just was amazed by it. Normally politicians are, they're all buttoned down and they're sitting there straight, and she's like scratching her shoulder. She's sitting on the floor of her hotel room, leaning up against the bed. What the hell, Danielle?
That argument. The reason I find it irritating is because we could have had Energy East, which would have expanded our ability to support our friends in Eastern Canada and also been an export market off the East Coast. We could have had Northern Gateway, which would have expanded and supported export markets in a more substantial way off the West Coast. And Eastern politicians advocated against those things. And so we went to work on expanding our access to the United States with additional egress, with twinning, with looping. We did that because the rest of the country wasn't interested in having that conversation. So to now make the argument that that's a point of leverage is going to be very, very irritating, not only to me, but also to my fellow Albertans. If they want to start the conversation by saying, gosh, maybe we should have had Energy East and Northern Gateway, let's restart that so that we're not so dependent on one customer, I am more than happy to have that conversation. And I hope that's where the conversation goes. But having been so hostile to Alberta's interests and having canceled so many important projects that would have allowed us to have a diversified customer base, it's outrageous to me that they would even propose it.
But were you able to obtain any assurances from the president-elect, Mr. Trump, on the 25% tariffs that are slated to come in now in under a month?
I think we need to be prepared that tariffs are coming. That seems to me I think we've all seen the biggest irritant to the United States are trade deficits, which they believe they have. I don't actually believe they have a trade deficit. When you take out energy, we actually buy more goods and services from the US than they buy from us. I'm happy to make this national bank report available to anyone who wants it, that shows we actually have $58 billion in a trade deficit with the Americans when you take energy out. And that's why I wanted to have the assurance that the Americans are interested in getting more of our oil and gas, because I think oil and gas is going to be key to being able to get a breakthrough once tariffs do come in getting them off. I think if we maintain a strong partnership on energy, we make the case about how much the Americans benefit from that energy relationship. We demonstrate that we are a good trade partner, that we buy more goods and services from America than any other nation, and that we do buy more goods and services when you take energy out. I think we can make that case, but I feel like from what I have seen, that it's not my decision to make on tariffs, but we do need to be preparing ourselves for the fact that they're likely to come in on January 20th.
Yeah, so I like that approach. It's conciliatory, it's polite, it's respectful, and she knows what she's talking about. That's one thing I'm always very impressed about when it comes to Danielle Smith. When she talks about oil, especially energy, she knows exactly what she's talking about. She knows where all the pipelines are. She knows where they go. She knows what provinces or states they provide energy to, whether it's natural gas, whether it's heavy crude. It doesn't matter. She knows that stuff inside and out. That is part of, I suppose, part of what it means to be the premier of Alberta. And she intimated later on in that conversation that Melanie Joly, our foreign affairs minister, who this past weekend said she is not running for the leadership of the Liberals. She's got too important work to do. She intimated that Joly doesn't know where these pipelines go. And if you're going to find other premiers or cabinet ministers starting to rattle sabers about cutting energy off to the United States, you would have to be cutting it off to Ontario and Quebec as well because of line number 5 and line number 9. And it seemed in the conversation that Smith was saying Joly didn't know that. How can you have somebody going down to the United States and discussing possible retaliatory tariffs or cutting energy off to our largest customer when they don't even know where the pipelines are or what the pipelines provide, whether it's oil or whether it's natural gas? They don't know. That's mind-blowing to me. And then you've got Jagmeet Singh, who opened this big yap today.
Donald Trump is a clear threat to Canada. his tariff threats are directly threatening hundreds and thousands of Canadian jobs. They also threaten to increase the cost of living at a time when people are already struggling with the cost of groceries and the cost of their bills. So it is serious. We have to take it seriously. And that's why what we've seen again and again has not worked. Going to meet with them, trying to wine and dine them is a failed approach. Donald Trump is not rational. You can't discuss a plan over a meal with him. He is a bully. And bullies understand one thing, that is strength. They also understand pain. So if he wants to pick a fight with Canada, we have to make sure it's clear that it's going to hurt Americans as well. There's going to be pain felt for not just Canadians, but also Americans. And so that's why I'm calling on my plan. We know that the United States needs our critical minerals. They're very important for the United States. So I'm calling on all political leaders to support turning off the taps on those critical minerals. Let's stop the flow of those critical minerals into the States. There's no quicker way to get Donald Trump to back away from tariffs than to shut off the tap on critical minerals, what the states need very clearly.
Donald Trump is a bully. And the only thing bullies understand is strength. Shut up, Jagmeet. Seriously, you are so insignificant. Elizabeth May, too, when she got up on the podium last week looking hammered. I mean, she looked hammered. It was the middle of the day. And by the way, that thing with Singh was yesterday, not today. But she gets up and starts saying, well, okay, I'll tell you what. Instead of you taking Canada as a 51st state, how about we take California and Oregon and Washington? We do some trades. Stupid. Like, these leaders who have 2 seats or 24 seats and have absolutely no path to winning the government of Canada should probably just sit back and shut up. Know your place, man. What did The Rock used to say on WWF? Know your role. It's like a little mouse. If Trump even notices this, which I doubt, he's got bigger issues to deal with. It probably sounds something like beep, 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 beep. What's that? Anybody know? It's just so insignificant and embarrassing. I understand what he's trying to do. He's trying to show strength in the face of a hurricane. Be strong. Jagmeet, it does not work for you. And the reason for that is because you've been such a hypocrite and you have been attached at the hip with Justin Trudeau for the past, 3-4 years now? And you haven't voted against this incredibly corrupt, incompetent government in all of the opportunities that you've had. But now you want to show strength? Dude, seriously. Apparently, his caucus was rebelling against him before Christmas. Remember, he announced that he was going to vote non-confidence finally in the first opportunity in the new year. Because we're hearing that his caucus was putting such pressure on him to do that he had no choice. He had no choice. He had to, or they were going to fire his ass right out of there. And they are anyway. They will anyway. In the latest projections, the NDP are down to like 20, 21 seats. The Liberals are hanging around 38, 39 seats. And the Conservatives are up around 240 seats. It's not going to matter how many seats they have. But the NDP wants to expand. They want to be the official opposition. Looks like the Bloc Québécois is going to be the official opposition. But the NDP should be, if they had a reasonable leader who showed strength, who knew how to talk, good looking, represented Aboriginals in Canada, like Wab Kinew. And look, I'm not a fan of Wab Kinew. He's a Marxist. As far as I'm concerned, anybody who runs under the orange is a Marxist. They're a neo-Marxist, not to be trusted. They're globalists. But watch how the NDP in the next election improves their standing. The Liberals are done for the next 20 years. They're finished. The NDP is the next logical successor to that position of possibly being the official opposition. And with, who knows, with a leader like Wab Kinew, and I don't even want to say this because it scares the hell out of me. It's possible, if Poilievre does not do a good job for us, that Kinew wins an NDP federal government in 2029 or 2030 or whenever the hell the election is after this coming one, which is supposed to be again on May the 5th. Okay, let's move to the Los Angeles fires now. Here's a story from the Western Journal. Karen Bass's team discovers damning insider fire documents online, immediately deletes the proof. This is interesting. By the way, she's a trained Marxist. I exposed that on Friday night. Well, I wasn't the one who initially exposed it, obviously, but I did find that report. Things are going from bad to worse for LA Mayor Karen Bass's office just days after reports that she planned to can her fire chief, Kristen Crowley, after she publicly criticized the level of funding she'd received from the city. Apparently, it's the same as it was in the 1960s. Has Los Angeles even grown in the last 60 years? Bass is facing intense criticism yet again from a memo up on the city website, which shows that just months ago, the chief practically begged City Hall to stop its budget cutting spree on fire response. The memo, which was dated November the 18th, was written to the fire commissioners, according to the Washington Free Beacon. That's a 5-person board appointed by Bass. In Crowley's memo, she urged the commissioners to let Bass and the city council know how dire the situation was. In many ways, the current staffing, deployment model, and the size of the LAFD have not changed since the 1960s. So there's that. Do you think, and this is me asking a question, what we exposed about Karen Bass and her ties with Cuban Marxism and terror groups? Terror groups? That she is just letting this happen? That all of this has been on purpose? That all of this has been on purpose? Look at Gavin Newsom here, this incompetent. I want to know what happened.
I want to know the answers. So I'm the governor of California. I want to know the answer. I've got that question. I can't tell you about how many people, what happened. My own team saying what happened. And I want to get the answers. And I'll be candid with you, I wasn't getting straight answers.
Yeah.
I watched the press conference. I met with some of those leaders. We had my team start talking to local leaders, saying what's going on. Our state.
And you weren't getting straight answers from
I was getting
leaders.
different answers. When you start getting different answers, then I'm not getting the actual story. And they're assessing it. And I get that as well. You have to have a little bit of grace, back to the point. We're in this emergency environment and everything else. So I just want to determine the facts. But no one has any patience anymore. In this weaponized, back to the grievance of Trump, everyone else, there's immediacy. And lies travel the proverbial world, and it's hard to get the facts out there unless you have backing of those facts and you can communicate them soberly. And so that's what we're trying to achieve as relates to this. But I have 10 other things we're doing concurrently as well. I mean, across the board on recovery, on disaster assistance, getting the major disaster declaration. It may be the first one in U.S. history over a text with the White House within literally 36 hours. To get 100% reimbursement for folks out here. We've been working concurrently in all of these areas. We're doing executive orders as I speak as it relates to recovery and land use, dealing with speculation and fraud, and trying to address issues on the Coastal Commission here. And
land use, Gavin? Did you say land use?
And address the issue of planning permits and how we address all of the myriad of needs for small businesses, all of this in real time. Again, as the state, even though this is not a state responsibility area, to support the city and the county that are overwhelmed at this moment.
Is he a bumbler? Yeah. Or is he carrying off the plan here as he was told to do? Same with Karen Bass, same with Justin Trudeau, same with all of these. What do you think here? Now, if we have my son on the show right now, he'd be rolling his eyes saying, Dad, it's not a plan, it's just chaos. This is part of it, man. Los Angeles, the second largest city in the United States, is destroyed. But what they don't seem to understand, because they're trying to say, oh, it's an accident or it's climate change or whatever the hell, right? What they don't understand is people are waking up now at a record rate. How could something like this happen? Seriously. How could there be no water in the fire hydrants? Why were they cutting budgets up until November? Like, slash the fire budget. Why didn't they remove the underbrush from the trees? They're in a desert. Essentially, that valley They didn't do anything like that. They did not prepare for anything like this, and they know they get fires there every single year. But those Santa Ana winds are blowing right now. Oh, they knew. And then, of course, I'm seeing some photographs and some video of what looks like some kind of energy beams coming from somewhere starting fires spontaneously. I can't verify that. I don't know if these videos were taken from a Star Trek movie or if they're real, because there's no context surrounding them, which is incredibly frustrating. But what if? What if? I was talking last week about Yuri Bezmenov. I referenced Yuri Bezmenov. Forget who I was having a conversation with. Anyway, I could not remember the 4 tenets of the ideological subversion that he was talking about back in 1984. I've run this on the show. I don't even know how many times, but I thought it would be a good time to run it again. The abbreviated, the abridged version. Anyhow, here it is.
Ideological subversion is the process which is legitimate, overt, and open. You can see it with your own eyes. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate 1 generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The result you can see. Most of the people who graduated in the 60s, dropouts or half-baked intellectuals, are now occupying the positions of power in the government, civil service, business, mass media, educational system. You are stuck with them. You cannot get rid of them. They are contaminated. They are programmed to think and react to certain stimuli in a certain pattern. You cannot change their mind, even if you expose them to authentic information, even if you prove that white is white and black is black. You still cannot change the basic perception and the logic of behavior. In other words, these people, the process of demoralization is complete and irreversible. To get rid society of these people, you need another 20 or 15 years to educate a new generation of patriotically minded and common sense people.
So where are we now? Destabilization, demoralization, are they almost finished? You see, that's the thing. There's a lot of people out there very negative about this, and I'll admit that occasionally I feel kind of defeated from time to time, depending on how tired I am. But, I mean, with more and more people waking up, and there's millions of them in Los Angeles who've got questions and they're not getting the answers they need, right? I mean, and these are basic questions. So now they're going, wait a minute, what the hell's going on? There's no water? What do you mean? They're canceling insurance? Like, people had their home insurance canceled a week before these fires began. They're catching people with blowtorches out there who are helping to set the fires. So far, 3 have been caught, I believe. And then those energy weapon things, I'm not sure if they're using those. And where are they coming from? That's the thing these videos never show you, where the energy beam is coming from. It's all very interesting what's happening over there. And we've had a lot of these natural disasters in the United States in the last year, haven't we? It seems more than normal. Must be climate change. And, you know, when they throw that out, like, are you freaking kidding me right now? Nobody believes you. Nobody believes you. I want to throw this up on the screen before I go to an amazing video. You seen those videos of this group of guys who go around catching these pedos because they've been masquerading as a teenager online. They've been talking to the pedo. They make a date to meet the pedo. Pedo shows up and they just kick the crap out of him, or they turn him over to the cops, depending on the situation. We're going to show you a video like that in just a second. Ex-UK Labour MP arrested in pedophile sting months after party suspension. This is very interesting. From English.alarabla.net. Former Labour MP. And you've heard about what's going on in the UK right now. All those gangs, right? The R gangs that are running around the UK or were running around the UK. Elon Musk was exposing that on X. This former Labour MP has been arrested in a pedophile sting-op months after being suspended from the party following serious allegations. The video circulating on social media appears to show a man identifying himself as ex-Labour MP Ivor Kaplan being handcuffed by police officers. Sussex police confirmed the arrest of a 66-year-old man on suspicion of engaging in sexual communication with a child. Here you go.
You told this child that you was going to go and meet him.
That wasn't, because Stephen will be at work.
At 1 o'clock, you said that you was going to go and meet him at quarter to.
If we could. I don't know, trains, etc.
Yeah,
etc.
you see.
I don't know.
But wait, here's the slippery thing. You said you had no intention, but now you concede that actually, I might have been planning to take this child to meet Stephen. So you admit that's what you were trying to do.
I don't know his age.
You know his age accurately. This child regularly.
If I knew his actual age,
this child.
Know that, then I wouldn't do anything.
This child regularly told you that they were at school and they were doing school-related activities.
Yeah, but that's not the same as knowing age. I have never. I want to ask him what his age is, and I've never done that.
Yes, you did.
No, I have never done that.
Of course.
No, I have never done that. So I want to ask that question.
You've asked that question. I've read it. Clear and simple terms.
Anyway.
You know exactly how old this child was.
And you wanted this child to bring other children.
No.
So that you could abuse more than one child.
No.
You used to be you used to be a veterans minister, didn't you?
Never happened.
Did you? Yeah. Yeah, we're all veterans, and do you know what? It makes me absolute sick that you had anything to do with our armed forces.
I haven't done anything. Okay, I'm not going to do that. I am not going to do that.
To do what? You're not going to do what? Not going to do what?
I was going to tell.
What don't you understand? The reason you are not taking this child to have sex with them, no, stop it. The reason you are not meeting this child to have sex with them is because we've turned up.
No, I wasn't going to have sex.
Well, why have you told this child that that was what your plan was then? Black and white, it's your words.
Have you shown me the image?
Yes, I've shown you the image.
You know, watching somebody get caught in the act is always very satisfying, isn't it? I want to take 30 seconds here to ask you guys to like and share and get this out to as many people as you possibly can, whether you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook or on Twitch or on X or on Rumble or Telegram. Please copy the link to the show and paste it in some group or whatever. Do it. Get it out there to as many people as possible. One of the reasons I ask, obviously, we need more ears. And like I keep saying, people are waking up. But when you share this, it gets out faster, right? And it also helps to beat that smothering algorithm they've got on this page, especially on Facebook. It's amazing how badly they are deranking this page. With 57,000 followers, there should be many, many more viewers on Facebook than there are, but not, at least so far. Hopefully Zuckerberg sticks to his word. And I know that the whole thing is happening in the United States where they're going to get rid of the fact checkers and all of that, but he hasn't said anything about reach. These guys have always said freedom of speech, but not necessarily freedom of reach. Well, why not? If you've worked to get 60,000 followers on any platform or 100,000 on any platform, you should be rewarded for that. by getting your speech out there. And besides, if 100,000 people are going to follow you, that means they kind of probably want to hear what you have to say. So let them hear it, Mark. Let them hear it, Elon, because this is happening on X as well. Let them hear it, Google, YouTube. And the bigger this show gets in terms of followers, the bigger the guests we can get on. People have been asking me, especially this past weekend, I got a flurry of requests from people wanting me to get the musician Jamie Nix on the show. I played one of his songs a few weeks ago. And so here, we're just having a conversation on X and messages right now. Jamie, hopefully we can get him on the show this week. And we're going to have our vax-injured paramedic friend, Chet Chisholm, hopefully on this week from Nova Scotia to talk about the immigration issue and what happened in his industry, paramedics in Nova Scotia, because it seems like they're lowering the standards for immigrants. And we shouldn't conflate the word immigrant with newcomer, because that's a whole different story. There are immigrants, meaning people who have arrived here legally, and then there's people who are coming illegally in many, many different ways. And Chet seems to have a lot of information about that. So we're going to try and bring him on later on this week to discuss. All right. Quickly to this story here. Moderna, this is good news. Moderna's cut 2025 sales forecast by $1 billion on weak vaccine demand as their shares tumble. Excellent. This one from the Hindu. This is Indian media now, like India. Periodic screening required to avert sudden cardiac deaths in athletes. Wow. During vigorous physical activity, there's substantial increase in sympathetic nervous system activity in predisposed individuals. This surge can trigger arrhythmias and potentially lead to... So it couldn't have anything to do with that thing that so many billions of people took a few years ago. It couldn't have anything to do with that. These people are just working their damn hearts too hard. Of course, we never had anything like this before. And now it appears to be an epidemic, but hey, who am I? I'm just some dude with a show. Mark Zuckerberg, this is hilarious. And by the way, Joe Rogan had a big week for guests last week. I'm not sure if you, and it's like 3-hour episodes, man. He had a conversation with Mel Gibson, which was fantastic. We showed you some clips of that on Friday night, I think it was. And then he also had Mark Zuckerberg on last week. And we're going to play a clip of Zuckerberg on with Rogan in just a second. But this is hilarious. Zuckerberg now orders Meta offices to remove tampons from men's bathrooms. The order is part of Zuckerberg's anti-LGBT, and this story comes from LGBTQnation.com. The order is part of Zuckerberg's anti-LGBTQ plus policy spree in the wake of Donald Trump's victory. He has also removed those little emojis, you know, the little ones on Facebook that you can put on your, like a happy face or whatever. Well, he's removed the LGBTQ ones from Facebook and from Instagram. Here is Zuckerberg and Joe Rogan talking about infiltration by the Biden administration into Meta offices.
These people from the Biden administration would call up our team and like scream at them and curse, and it's like these documents are, it's all kind of out there.
Did you record any of those phone calls?
I don't think we but I think
I want to listen.
I mean, there are emails. the emails are published. It's all kind of out there, and they're like, and basically it just got to this point where we were like, no, we're not gonna take down things that are true. That's ridiculous. They wanted us to take down this meme of Leonardo DiCaprio looking at a TV talking about how 10 years from now or something, you're going to see an ad that says, okay, if you took a COVID vaccine, you're eligible for, for this kind of payment, like this sort of like class action lawsuit type meme. And they're like, no, you have to take that down. And we just said, no, we're not going to take down humor and satire. We're not going to take down things that are true. And then at some point, I guess, I don't know, it flipped a bit. I mean, Biden, when he gave some statement at some point, I don't know if it was a press conference or to some journalists, where he basically was like, these guys are killing people. And man, I don't know. Then like all these different agencies and branches of government basically just like started investigating and coming after our company. It was brutal. It was brutal.
Wow.
Now, look, guys, we don't instantly lionize anybody who has seen the light suddenly, right? Like Mark Zuckerberg, all of a sudden he's changing all of his policies. I mean, he is responsible for the situation that we found ourselves in not that long ago. He's one of the culprits. So he's got a lot of work left to do before he can even be thought of as decent, right? And I don't care how apple pie he comes across in these interviews. Oh, you know, I was just... Never mind, Mark. Never mind. You got a lot of work to do, buddy. Seriously. And maybe you have seen the light, or maybe it's just you've been threatened by Trump now. So you were being threatened by Biden. Now you're being threatened by Trump. Either way, you've got a lot of explaining left to do. And you've got to lift the shadow banning. I don't hear anybody talking about that yet. And it bothers the hell out of me. It's fine to be able to say what you want on social media without fact checkers reporting your post and getting your page taken down. But if nobody hears what you have to say, then what's the point? Right? You guys know Catherine Austin Fitz. You probably heard the name. Familiar from the movie Planet Lockdown, which was banned on YouTube instantly in about 5 minutes because Wikipedia here says it presents a wide range of falsehoods about COVID-19. Catherine Austin Fitz was in that movie, and she was labeled at that point as one of the disinformation dozen. So this story here from Sense Receptor on X, a reminder. Now, what they're suggesting here is that the Trump administration is not exactly clean either. As a matter of fact, I got a text very early this morning. I didn't sleep at all last night, by the way, because I've had this stomach thing the last couple of days. So I just happened to be awake, and Boyd was texting. And he sent me some stuff, man, about Trump and a Dubai billionaire called Hussein Sajwani investing $20 billion into U.S. data centers. This is the guy who, along with the ruler of Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Saudi, put up $600 million for Malaysian flight MH370, the gold heist, the mass murder. You guys know his story from his book. He told it on the show as well. I think maybe it's time to get Boyd back on. He's Canada's answer to Alex Jones, I think, or maybe David Icke. Babylonian black magic, money created out of thin air. And he thinks that Donald Trump is just as dirty. Now, the thing is, when we're talking about the cabal, the Committee of 300 or whatever, and then the 13 families, that they run the whole thing. Remember, we've heard stories that the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds funded both sides in World War II and whatnot, right? Well, this could be the same thing. You've got the Zionists on one side, you've got the globalist communists on the other side, and the globalists, the family of 13 families sitting at the top of the Committee of 300, they're controlling both, they're funding both. Don't know. And then there could be this whole other thing with the sheiks over there in Saudi. I don't know. Still putting it all together. And it's interesting because there's some people you can sit and you can watch and you can hear them speak for 2 or 3 hours, and it seems as though they've got it all figured out, and they don't, because they're missing certain elements. There are certain things that are in play that they don't touch. And maybe it's because they haven't got that part figured out yet. It's all crazy. And just the fact that we're sitting here talking about it. Can you imagine a normie in this conversation? Oh, you guys are all nuts, man. Sense Receptor. RFK Jr. has pitched bailing out Bitcoin billionaires with taxpayer money so they can ditch the crypto Ponzi scheme. So Catherine Austin Fitz is a former investment banker. She's a former HUD official, founder of the Solari Report. Here she is talking about that plan, coming from RFK Jr.
Worst proposal, and in fact, the worst proposal I've ever seen in my life in the financial area, almost as bad as stealing the 21 trillion, was proposed by Kennedy when he proposed that essentially the Bitcoin billionaires should be able to sell to government. Government should do a mandated buying program. And in fact, when they sold that Bitcoin to government, they should be allowed to stay secret. And it gets even better. They should be free of taxes if they reinvest in real estate. So what you're talking about was one of the worst steal from the poor and give to the rich using government that I've ever seen. Now, it's very classic in American government that a group of people get together, give huge donations to politicians, and then politicians takes taxpayers' money and taxpayers' borrowing capacity and mandate, purchases of that industry's product, whether it's oil or whether it's agriculture. Now it's digital assets made up out of thin air. So, it's an old game, it's a kickback scheme, and it's pretty ugly. And essentially, my biggest concern about the scheme is you never want to be the last guy in a Ponzi scheme. But the only player big enough to take the Bitcoin billionaires out at a high price would be such a scheme. And what it means is the government would be buying something and be the last player in the Ponzi scheme. They would do it, it depends on the specific proposal, but they would do it in a way that says, okay, rather than provide good municipal services like fire hydrants where the water works when the fire comes, or rather than lowering taxes, they proceed to basically put money in an asset that has no fundamental real purpose or collateral, and all they do is take the billionaires out of their Ponzi scheme. I mean, it's arguably the worst financial idea I've ever seen. Now, the thing that inspired the O'Leary team to do this piece and make this presentation was the state legislators also started to get lobbying for having the states buy Bitcoin. Now, the states are on a balanced budget, and that means they're going to have to take money out of something critical to basically take the Bitcoin billionaires out of their Ponzi scheme.
Or raise taxes.
Or raise taxes. And I can't imagine anything more devastating to the tax base than do this. Now, my position is citizens should be free. If citizens want to speculate, they should be free to do so. But nobody should tax them and force their money and mandate their money into a speculative market. It's absurd. It's absurd, especially when we don't have the kind of basic municipal infrastructure that we need.
Yeah. So we heard from Boyd, and I've heard from several other people too, that they can crash Bitcoin whenever they want. And in this way, it sounds like they're maybe trying to make Bitcoin this digital currency that we've all been talking about for the past 4 or 5 years. And it's already set up for government control based on those trapdoors that they have built into the back. And remember when Boyd said something about release the Kraken? When they release the Kraken, that means they can dive Bitcoin or they can bring it back up again. And they can do it in a matter of seconds. We should get Boyd back on the show. He's got more stuff. And he's always a good... One thing about Boyd, though, when you get Boyd on the air, he's going to tell a story and that's it. You don't interrupt him. You just let him go. But he is a good guest to have on. So, yeah, we'll try and get Boyd on the air as well. And Jamie and Chet. Yeah, so, yeah, we're working on some guests for this week and maybe next week. Have you guys ever heard of a guy called Bart Sibrel? Okay, let me backtrack here for a second. We're going to go to the extension in just a couple of minutes on shadowdavis.com for you all access members. And if you're not an all access member, become one. What am I, Elizabeth May? Become one at shadowdavis.com. So it's SHADOEDAVIS.com. And it's pretty cheap. I'm going to be lowering the price too. Like this week, it's going to go down from $11 a month to $8 a month. And you're going to get a deal if you get the whole year, like a better deal, probably for $85. I haven't quite got the numbers down in my head yet, but I'm getting there. Anyway, Before I ask you about Bart Sibrel, let me ask you this. Do you believe that man went to the moon? Some people look at this and they go, what, are you also one of these flat earthers? No, I'm just asking the question. I have no problem asking questions. I like to hear both sides of the argument. And I may never make a decision on this. I may never actually come up with an opinion because there's compelling arguments on both sides of it, as far as I'm concerned. But it seems to me that that radiation belt that you have to get through to go to the moon, that would kill him. We can't do it now. And they trashed all of their records, NASA did, regarding the Apollo missions. Somehow, it just seems, I'm not talking about the pictures, and I'm not talking about the video. I'm just talking about the basic stuff here. Like, why haven't we ever been back? Well, there's no need. There's no race. Well, if there's so many, like in the last 50 years, wouldn't you have been able to try and colonize the moon or atmosphere conversion or whatever? If you were serious about this climate change and anyway. Yeah, you know, Vicky, he's never stated that. It's never been proven that he stated that in relation to that question. It's been hinted at. And I understand what you mean. I've seen those same videos. That's because it didn't happen, Buzz said one time during a talk show, I think. But you didn't know if he was kidding or not. Like, it's just... Anyway, the Van Allen belt. That's right. Thank you, Trent. So this Bart Sibrel has done a movie, and it's called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon. It's been out for about a year, maybe two now. And I just discovered this thing over the weekend. So we're going to play this, like 45 minutes long. We're going to play this in the extension tonight on shadowdavis.com. It's fascinating stuff. And he's going to make his case for why men never went to the moon. Can't get there now. We couldn't get there then with 1/1,000,000th of the computing power that you have in your average smartphone. Yeah. So that is it for the program, the social media portion of the program tonight, you guys. Thank you very much for being here. Don't forget, like and share. Get it out there to as many people as you possibly can. The more people who follow this show, the more viewers we have, the better chance we have of getting some big name guests on to really explode this out there. People are waking up all over the place. It's our duty to make it happen sooner rather than later. So thank you for being here. If you're brand new or if you've been with the show now for the past 4 years, I love you all. I appreciate you all. I will talk to you again tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Central for another Shadow at Night live. And if you're in all access, I'll see you in 2 minutes time.